Howdy, folks. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. We have lots of stuff that's going to be starting to happen today. The buyout window opened up. Nobody was on waivers, so there was no immediate news. But I think with the cap not going up too much, we're going to see, I don't know about a slew, but I think a number of buyouts, and that'll be very interesting. Maybe we'll go through some of those later in the show. Kevin will be joining us in a second, but as always, we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So today's the day we could wave goodbye to the Oakland A's, and it's in a way it's sad. They do have a pretty good fan base, they do, and they just could never come to an agreement with the city. There's still arguments between baseball and the mayor of Oakland, and you're never going to get to the bottom of it. I did see something really dumb. They were having basically a protest at the stadium. So the stadium was pretty full, and Manfred was saying like it's good to see the stadium full. And
yeah, what a jacket! I mean, there was a reverse boycott, which I didn't understand.
Right.
I don't understand the concept. All you're doing, go there and express your displeasure at the fact that Oakland is that the team's no longer going to be there. But all you're doing with a boycott and going to the game is putting money in the coffers of the owners who are moving the team.
Yeah, but it's a way for the fans to kind of say goodbye because they're not going to show up next year. That's for sure.
I was just going to say, if you want to do an effective boycott, nobody go into the stadium and 30,000 people be outside the stadium protesting.
You could do that. Yeah. Here's the quote that Manfred said. It was great. It's great to see what is this year almost an average Major League Baseball crowd in the facility for one night. That's a great thing. Like, he just really doesn't get it. And he doesn't get the vitriol that's thrown at him. And he doesn't get that you've just shunned a fan base with multiple championships, a couple of the greatest teams of all time, really, of all time. I watched those teams. I remember them intently. And
you watched you watched the Philadelphia A's with Jimmy Fox and those guys?
Yeah, that's who I watched. And that's the other shame of it all. Like, Jimmy Fox, he'll never, ever have a chance now to ever get his number retired. I was hoping to get it retired through them, but then once he goes to Vegas, it's over. Like, they're never going to do it.
This is the thing. They're likely going to keep the name A's Athletic. Mm-hmm. So, you never know down the line. Maybe that ownership group will honor. Like, I don't, like, I've never been to that stadium, so I don't know if they honor like the greats of the Philadelphia A's, like Lefty Grove or Al Simmons or Jimmy Fox or
No, I mean, the only retired numbers recently were like Reggie and Ricky Henderson, who they named the stadium after. And so that's going away, which doesn't bother me, by the way, just on the side note.
Keep on breaking. Yeah.
But the thing is, what really gets me here is it'll probably go the way of the Nationals, where at the beginning for many years, they didn't even recognize the Expos records. And then they decided, okay, we'll put them in there. I think they're going to do the same baloney in Vegas.
It's very possible, and I like they may want to carve out their own niche, and if they do that, then okay.
Yeah, that's what the Nationals thought they were doing too, and then they realized, okay, maybe we're not carving out our niche. Maybe we should actually honor guys like Gary Carter and Rusty Staub for being in the organization, and they did, but it took years. And even I remember I was at the Hall of Fame where they said they don't recognize. There was a little stand up for. In one of the showcases that says the Nationals don't recognize, and I have a picture of it, don't recognize the Expos records, which now they do. But I don't know what's going to happen with this team, and I just think it's bad. And this is, again, I know some people in Vegas, and at first they were thinking, oh, this is going to be an easy sellout. Then they're like, I thought about what you said, and they said, they love the Golden Knights. That's their team, and they love UNLV. They do. Other than that, though, the Raiders are not well loved in Vegas. They're not. They sell out because they're a football team.
And it's 8 games a year. And and it's a destination city. So you get like if the Bills are playing in Vegas, Bills fans are going to fly to Vegas to go see them. So they're going to make money there all the time.
But my cousin, who's a real estate agent there, thought about it overnight and said it is going to be hard to sell 80 games a year in Vegas. That's going to be a challenge. The Tuesday, Wednesday night games are not going to be sellouts. They're just not.
That's why, Kev, I think that's why they're building a 35,000 seat stadium in Vegas rather than 50.
Yeah, I mean, where do you draw 35 plus every night? You don't. Where Detroit's a great baseball town, and they don't draw 35,000 in that.
No, but you figure a new place is supposed to, not existing.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, but
yeah,
I don't know that.
Now I'll say this, and I don't know the plans of the stadium. I don't know if they have a mock-up yet. If it doesn't have a retractable dome, you're going to have people dying of heat stroke. It's going to be like Texas. So it better be a retractable dome.
Well, there's a question as to where it's actually going to end up. I know they were going to be at the property of where the Tropicana is, and then they looked at another piece of land. I still think it's up in the air, but I do think they said it was going to be a retractable. I'm pretty sure of that.
Okay, that makes sense, because then, like I said, people will be dying. Just this little thing, because I like watching like new series online on Apple or Netflix or whatever. If it's a good one, if it's a clever premise, I'll give it a chance. And a couple friends recommended a show, and I believe it's an Apple show called For All Mankind. And the premise is the Russians landed on the moon first instead of the US. Now I've only watched like 10 minutes of it, but and like I said, I'll give it a couple episodes just to see. But Kev, it's like I'm all for inventive ideas for some of these shows, but sort of the alternate history thing, like the Man in the High Castle, where
that was good,
where the Nazis were.
Yeah.
It can run out after a year or two. Whereas I like a series that lasts longer and that you can get involved.
Yeah. No, I didn't know about that one, and I'm usually up on Apple. Apple does great programs.
They do.
And, they have a lot of really good ones. I'd be interested in that. I'd probably get it. One of the things that I'm sure once I start a show, I usually finish it. I don't bail. So I will, if I get into it, quickly. But, those are always kind of, fun. Although I will say when I was a kid, I did not like What If comic books. Did not like them whatsoever.
Okay.
Because it always was, they fool you with some cover that looks like it's real, and then you read it and it's a what if, and you're going, don't take me away from my series to do some, because you don't have a good idea that week.
Right.
So
I will say this: Mike harkens back to the days of Barnaby Jones and The Equalizer, where they would just be on TV for 10 years just because they didn't have another spot on TV, not because the show was any good.
First of all, The Equalizer was only on for 4, and it was great.
Oh.
Barnaby Jones, Buddy Epson was basically like Joe Biden. He was senile. But hey, you gave me the opening, so I had to take it. No, but
not really.
No, I
don't think I gave you that opening. Just to be fair.
Yeah.
But there's another series called Platonic with Seth Rogen.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I would say this. We're split in my house. My wife stopped watching it. If you like Seth Rogen, you'll like it. If you're not sure about Seth Rogen, you'll probably hate it.
Yeah. And now Russ, before we start, Russ is going to see The Flash today. And all I know is I see the previews, and I worked in a movie theater for 10 years, so I know movies. Some of the movies, they put all the good scenes in the previews just to suck people in to go to the movie.
Yeah, most movies they do that.
Yeah, but a lot of them they touch on it, they show something, and they drag you in, and then it's actually good. And this one, it actually looks like okay, they gave you a little bit of Ben Affleck, they gave you a little bit of Michael Shannon as General Zod, and a lot of Michael Keaton. And I think a lot of people are going to go see it to see Michael Keaton as Batman.
Yeah, that's part of the reason I'm seeing it. I mean, I was part of like one of those panels where Ezra Miller was in it like 4 years ago when the Flash movie was close to coming out. Then the pandemic hit. Then he was in jail and all kinds of stuff happened. And now they're finally putting it out. It looks really good. But there's one thing that has people people now get very picky. So there's some scenes in the Flash where they're blurry. But again, the producer had to come out and say those are conceptual scenes because the Flash is running so fast. You're looking through the eyes of the Flash, and no, but that's real. Like,
I get
but
it.
people don't like get that. Like, this guy's running at supersonic speed. Not everything's going to be 100% clear if you're watching it through his eyes.
Right. He's running as fast as I am. So, okay, let's start.
Like, you don't even walk fast.
I don't even walk, period.
No, I mean, actually, we should bring this up. So we were talking about the draft, Kev, and how the draft is going to be in Vegas. And, you know,
they say it's going to, yes.
Right. We think it's going to be in Vegas. And so I'm thinking I'm going to probably get my hotel that I got the last time because it's right across from T-Mobile. And then we could walk down the strip. And then Mike is like, we're not walking anywhere.
Well, no, okay. I'm talking about we're not walking anywhere for Nashville. It's like I love Uber, and this is the thing. Okay, Russell think this is an excuse, but it's I'm a type 2 diabetic and I have neuropathy. So if we're walking long distances, it starts to hurt my feet. I'm sorry, but I'm lazy. I'll pay for the damn Uber. I don't care.
But we're talking about the Vegas Strip where stuff isn't that far away, and Mike is like, we are not even considering walking. Like, walking is not a consideration.
A friggin' trolley going down the strip. I'm taking advantage of it, Russ.
You would take a rickshaw with a 90-year-old man.
No, I would not.
You would.
Yeah. You couldn't hang with my wife.
No.
She just walks and walks.
She would walk him into the ground.
Yeah. I thought, when we went to Europe the last time when we were done, according to her Fitbit, we walked almost 60 miles. So,
she would have been walking around the lake last year, Kev, while I would be on the boat.
Yeah, she's a walker, and we all go. We did the Civil War battlefield last week. I went on a little mini vacation with our 5-year-old grandson. We're going to take our grandkids one at a time on little mini vacations, and the Civil War battlefield, he had to walk 2 miles. He's 5 years old, and
that's awesome.
Which one
he did it? So he did it. Yeah.
Which one did you go to?
Perryville, which is the largest battlefield in Kentucky. I've obviously been to all the major ones. The only hard one, in my opinion, is Vicksburg, because you generally go, at least it's my experience, I do Civil War battlefields on the way to somewhere else. Like I'm planning to go here. So, Antietam's not that far. I'll go to Antietam. But the problem is Vicksburg, where I wanted to go. It was never on the way to anywhere, because it's Mississippi and you're not usually going by Mississippi to get somewhere. Yeah. So I actually had to make a special trip to go to that one. But everyone else, it's been on my.
Yeah, I went to Gettysburg. The only thing I drew a line at was going on the ghost tour. I'm like, no. Yeah. I went, looked at the battlefield. We did everything. I love Gettysburg, but I'm like, I am not going on a ghost tour. I'm not doing it.
I went to Gettysburg years ago, and I'd love to go again.
Yeah,
preferably on a rickshaw.
Well, Mike, sadly enough, we bike rode through the park, so we could actually stop and look at the things and then keep biking, and we bike rode through a lot of it.
With the driving tour of Gettysburg is actually, it's good, They have all the stops, and they have the audio in your car, and it's really inexpensive, relatively speaking.
It is.
I remember my fond memories of the Gettysburg is my son at the time was like 10, and we walked Pickett's Charge, we were about 3/4 across the open field as marching toward the grove of trees where the batteries was concentrated. And my son kind of stopped and looked at me. He goes, "This is insane."
Yeah.
They just walked across this field, in single file lines where,
At that point, when I went, they had the observation towers where the Confederate troops would have been, but they didn't allow people to walk on the ground. I don't know I think they did that for the movie Gettysburg. They allowed the reenactors to do it. But yeah, I'm looking at this. It's uphill. It's almost a mile. It's open. It was absolute insanity to expect those. It was a suicide mission.
We walked on some of the open stuff. There's a lot more open field at Gettysburg than you realize. They can't block it all off. That's the whole thing.
Right. Yeah, it is blocked off, but there are spots you can walk. But you really get a sense of the.
You do. You feel it. Like you can feel it.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started here. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, June 16th, 2023.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology. I just put out my final list, my final list of rankings on Sportsology.com.
I'm Kevin Allen, and we're starting our mock draft. We're going to get people to vote for their teams that they cover, and I'm going to get Russ Cohen to vote for a couple that we don't have writers in. So.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, so we didn't have a show yesterday, so some news to catch up on and some news that seems to be current. We'll start with the New Jersey Devils. The news yesterday was the signing of Jesper Bratt to an 8-year deal for $63 million, $7.875 million AAV. Let's start with that, Kev. I mean, there'd been a lot of talk about Bratt, about, them going to arbitration, then maybe, if they were going to sign Timo Meier, then trading them. They get a deal done. It's less than the amount that Jack Hughes is making. So good work by Tom Fitzgerald here.
Yeah, he was essentially. I talked to another GM about that deal, and he just said he thought it was exactly where you would have expected it to come in. Right. He's not. Hughes is the franchise guy, and he had to come in under that. But Brad has been productive. He's got good comparable numbers. So it was probably inevitable that that's where it was going to end up.
My only problem with the deal is I don't like his playoff performance, and I was like, I can't go in for 8 years for this guy now because I could really get stung here. I know he's had 2 73-point seasons, but I also have to look at the Jack Hughes effect, and I have to, as a GM, say, can this guy drive stuff on his own if he has to? Like if Hughes is out, I'm not sure he can, and so I wouldn't have given him 8 years. And the price is very high for me, but hey, Hughes is a guy that likes him, and the speed's great. But like I said, I would have liked to have seen more out of him in the playoffs. It wasn't great.
Yeah, I covered a politician one time that said, they don't pay people because they're good. They pay them to make decisions when you're in management. And they had to make a decision, and this is their guess that he's going to be fine.
I know, but he had 1 goal and 6 points in the 12 playoff games. That's not good.
But it's a pretty small sample size. So you're going to say he's not a good playoff player because he had 1 bad playoff?
I'm not saying he's not a good. Well, actually, he's had 2 playoffs. He only played in 1 game. He didn't score in that. But no, I'm not ready to say that. But what I'm ready to say is hold the fort here. Why am I giving him 8 years?
Well, it just because I don't think they could have gotten him on a bridge deal. So
right.
Well, I don't know. I think they should have tried because I don't know who's giving him 7 years on the open market. I don't know if anybody was.
I think they would.
Well, he would have hit the open market next summer
right.
when a lot more money would have been out there in the market. So he might have been able to get 7 years. Or something.
I think it's a reach, though. Let's just say this. I don't think it would be a big lineup of teams ready to do it.
But I think there's reason to be skeptical simply because he's a smaller player. He's a very good player, very good skilled player, but he's a smaller player. And, you already have it committed long-term to a guy like Hughes, who's immensely talented. But, you don't want, I think this playoff proved, you don't want too many small players. And now, your core group is Hischier, who's a very good two-way center. Hughes is dynamic offensively, and now Bratt and Dougie Hamilton is signed long-term too. So, that's the only hesitancy I had in that deal. I think the value, the AAV is fine, but the term and if he starts to drop off speed wise in a couple years, then he's a smaller player, and smaller players have difficulty when they lose a step. Now, the report that came out today, Kev, is that Timo Meier, who they elected to go to arbitration with, they're talking to him. His agent, Claude Lemieux, and Tom Fitzgerald are discussing a contract. It sounds like it is on the pathway of them getting a deal done. The question is, how much is it going to cost? And Meier wants to stay there, and they want him. So it sounds like a deal will get done. It's just a question of how much it'll be.
Yeah, and where are they at in years on that too? So
Right.
it's going to be interesting to see where it is. I would assume it'll be in the $8 million range. So
Yeah, they're just not going to pay him more than Hughes. They're not.
right.
No, and he's 26 years old, so they could go 8 on him. That would extend it to age 34. But yeah, I mean, I would think it's going to have to be in the same neighborhood, and then you're getting Russ. Then you're getting to okay, Hughes at 8, Bratt at 7.8, 7.5, Heishier at 7.25, presumably Meyer somewhere in there. Then you got 34, $35 million on 4 forwards. Now,
Yeah.
with the cap going up, that's not bad. But right now, that's an issue.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting into like the modern version of the Islanders problem down the line if things don't work out, because they were all $5 million. Now these guys will be all $8 million. So Timo Meier, while I like him, I'm not giving him 8 years. There's no way. I'd let him walk. I'd let him walk before I give him 8 years, but I qualify him for this year and use him for the playoffs this year. But there's no way I'm giving him 8. Especially,
I don't think you can say that. This is why. I mean, the Devils have to turn the corner. I mean, they've got to get going and get moving. And they look like they're in good shape. So you want to keep this group together.
Well, they're in good shape. The argument can be, what did Timo Meier really add to their playoffs last year? It wasn't anything.
Nothing. But again, I mean, I don't. Does Meier look like? We never saw Tyler Bertuzzi play in the NHL playoffs, but people looked at him and said, he should be good in the playoffs.
Right.
And he was. Now,
yes.
Timo Meier, the way he plays, he should be good in the playoffs. Now, he wasn't, but one season. I don't think that's that you can say, well, he's not a playoff player. He just wasn't this season. So
no, but the idea is, okay, so you can see what's going to happen here. He's going to get his 8 years and a no move. And if the Devils don't win in 2 or 3 years, they're going to start looking at these contracts and be like, we're in trouble.
Right.
And this is how you stay out of trouble, is you kind of have to gauge the market on Meier. And again, I don't know if anybody's giving him 7, but I'm willing to risk it rather than me giving him 8.
I'll tell you where the problem is going to be, because right now on defense they have Dougie Hamilton, they have Siegenthaler, and they have Marino all locked up for 4 or more years. So that in terms of stability, that's good. They have Nemec starting his ELC. He's probably going to play with them next year. Luke Hughes has got 2 more years, and they're both on entry level at less than $1 million. You can basically kiss Ryan Graves goodbye, because I don't think they can spend the money. And guys like Sarangovich and other forwards, I don't know if they're going to be able to afford them. But the problem is, when those defensemen, when Nemec and when Hughes come up for new deals, then you're going to have to make some hard decisions. You might have to buy out Palat, or you might have to trade Meier to open up the cap space, because we know that defense, and especially these guys who are top picks, they're going to have to spend money to keep them. So
yeah, but they'll be close to the end of those other contracts then, right?
Closer. I mean, there'll be 1 year away from Heishier. But you'd want to keep him. He'd only be 28 years old. Palat's 32 right now. I mean, they may have to buy out Palat after 2 more years. So,
or they'll move him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just think you do in this world that we now live in. You've got to just accept the fact that you can't just not pay guys, or you're going to end up with a mediocre team. Like, you got to pay your guys, and then, hope for the best, and see what happens. But like Meier's has shown in the regular season, he's a really effective player.
Right, but he plays a heavy game. If I'm buying, and again, if you're telling me I'm buying 8 years, and I'll be happy if I get 6, how many of those 6 is he going to be at the top of his game? Like, I can't. My whole problem right now is, because 8 years is available, I can't just dole out 8 years because of you're saying like it's the inevitable. I don't believe that.
Well, I mean, we're not doing it for everybody. We're talking about players that are really good players. I mean, Bratt and Meier, in my estimation, are in their top 4 or 5 players on their team.
Yes, and
you got to pay those guys. I mean, what team doesn't have 4 or 5 guys that they're paying a lot of money to. They all do.
Yeah, but
they all do, but not everybody's for 8 years. That's my thing.
And the trend that began to be set last year, and don't get me wrong, I think Nichushkin is a excellent player, but Colorado gave him 8 years. Tampa Bay gave Nick Paul 8 years in their defense. Why? Because they wanted to spread the AAV out. But the thing is, I mean, down the line, I mean, when the Piper calls on those contracts, I mean, Tampa Bay and Colorado, I mean, they're gonna, they'll say we'll worry about that in 4 or 5 years, but you have to think about that. You have to think about that.
The average salary, though, I mean, they're going to be average salary players at the end of those contracts. For Paul, what's Paul's number?
He was in the threes. I think it was 3.
Right. Yeah. Well, at the end of 8 years, the average salary is going to be $5 million. So he's going to be a below average salary player.
Yeah. So, Paul was 3.1.
Yeah. I mean,
Sergachev at 8.5, Cernak at 5.2. I mean,
yeah. Well, Cernak will be, an average salary player too, I think, by that time as well. I mean,
yeah, he'll be an average salary for his position.
And Paul will be below average, and they've got a lot of guys up at the top making big money.
And what they're going to gamble on is guys like Hedman and Stamkos signing for less to stay with the team.
Yeah, and I think that's highly likely. You look at it, I mean, there is kind of a model for this, the Joe Thornton model, where, at the end of your career, you're going to be, Stamkos to be a forever Lightning player. You keep him around. He signs for, look at Bergeron in Boston. It's another example.
Right.
So.
I mean, but here's the thing, though. So even though the window's small, like with Meyer, he had 14 points in 21 games in the regular season for the Devils. We're forgetting about the Sharks because with the Sharks, he had unlimited amounts of ice time and possibilities and everything. And then 4 points in 11 games in the playoffs. So neither of those were good, and they're still going to reward him with an 8-year deal, hoping that he goes to the 40 goals again with the Sharks. But now you're hoping.
Yeah, but you've seen enough of Meyer to know that he's that player.
Well, maybe the whole change, maybe the change in the East is not going to be good for him. Like, you have to look at some warning signs and say, okay, we still like him, but maybe we should pump the brakes on the years. We'll give him his money.
Yeah,
but maybe,
I'm sure they're trying, and who knows? Maybe they will. Maybe he doesn't want the years. I mean, we don't know. We're just guessing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, in the perfect world, would you always want to take the guy for less years? I think so. But
and most guys, but like if it's Jack Hughes, yes, of course you sign him for the 8 years because you're figuring by year 5 it's a bargain. I'm not thinking that about Timo Meyer.
Yeah, I mean, with a guy, and I was going to talk about Austin Matthews next because Elliot Friedman came out with some info on Matthews. I mean, obviously the Leafs would love to get him for 8 years, but his representation and he see the opportunity to get a shorter term deal and then hit it big at age 31 or 32 and have one more big deal. That seems to be what, the direction that things are going. Brad Treliving went to Arizona and talked to him last week. They seem to be on the same page. They seem to be working toward a new deal. But Kev, I would be dumbfounded if it's 8 years. I think it's probably going to end up being 4 or 5. And I think the Leafs will take it. They'll take as much as they can get from Matthews. But he's going to be the highest paid player in the league. And some Leaf fans will be unhappy because they didn't get the max deal out of him.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's because he didn't want it. I mean, he's at elite level. Like, I just said the Devils guys we're talking about are in their top 4 or 5 players. Well, Matthews is in the top 4 or 5 players in the game.
Right.
So, he's in a different position, and he knows that there's, you got to have some confidence in your ability, and he obviously does. So,
right.
And he's still going to be set for life. Like if he gets $14 million over 5, now he's looking at $70 million. He's set for life.
Right.
So it's not a real big gamble for him. It's a gamble because you got to feel confident that you're going to be the same player in 5 years. So.
Yeah, and the Toronto organization has been really good to Matthews. I mean, they've treated him well. I mean, I think most organizations would treat a player of his caliber well. But there have been others in other areas and other teams that have not. But he seems to want to be able, Russ, to finish the job in Toronto to win a championship. He's motivated to do that, which maybe means he'll take a little bit less to make that possible. But I think he's gonna be the highest paid player in the league whenever that new contract is
for at least a year.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean,
but yeah, no, I agree. I think we should. The chat room wants us to move on. I think we should get to the Hockey Hall of Fame stuff. I don't know what you think, but
yeah,
okay.
I want to talk about the Coyotes again too, but not for very long. So
okay.
Well, let's go with the Hall of Fame first, Russ.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Hockey Hall of Fame, they're going to select everybody, announce everybody on Wednesday. From the list that I see, and Kev, you could tell me if, I'm not looking at the right list or whatever. I mean, Henrik Lundqvist should be a slam dunk, but we know how goalies are. The three goalies that people are pointing at are Henrik Lundqvist, Jimmy Howard, and Corey Crawford. And I would think there's no way in hell that the Hockey Hall of Fame puts three goalies in at once. Like, they're not doing that.
No.
Jim Howard.
I know. I'm just saying they're the names on the list, Mike. I'm just giving them a little bit of credit. That's all.
No. I mean, those are the guys who are first-year eligibles. But
yeah, they're first-year eligible, but Lundqvist does seem like he's the only guy.
Corey Crawford, to me, Kev, is going to fall into that Mike Vernon, Tom Barrasso, Chris Osgood, 2 Stanley Cup winners, but won't get in. Maybe he will, but I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think he's going to get in, but there are people out there that are making the same case for Crawford that people in Detroit make for Osgood.
Right.
Like he's a cusp guy. You can point to the periods he had where he lifted that team up during its his time with the team, and they were winning. So you're going to be able to make that case, but I don't see that happening. One of the important aspects about Hall of Fame selection that is always lost on not only fans, but on members of the media too. They always look at it in terms of, did he do enough to get in the Hall of Fame? But they never look at it to what the reality of it is which not only do you got to have that standard, but you got to compete. You got to compete against that group that's coming up.
Right. And that's what I was trying to point out. The chat room, I wouldn't put Jimmy Howard in. I'm just telling you, Lundqvist is going up against these other two guys. They are his peers.
Lundqvist is going up against that entire group, which includes the forwards. So, yeah, they don't separate it out. They don't say, well.
No, but they should. There's
not a quota for goalies.
No. So he's up against whoever else is up.
Well, it's Jay Bouwmeester, Justin Williams. I mean, Alexander Steen, Dan Hamhuis, Ron Hainsey, they don't have a shot. But those other two, they're pretty good names.
I mean, Justin Williams won 3 Stanley Cups, but I look at his stats.
Yeah, and, Alex McGillney will be up again.
McGillney's always I would put him in. He's always a good discussion guy.
Keith Tkachuk, obviously.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys. And, this is to me, this seems like a year. And let me go back to what I said, because I've used this example before, and people tell me that it brings it home. And now this obviously has never happened. But what the point I'm trying to make is, if Wayne Gretzky and Mary Lemieux and Bobby Orr came up to the Hall of Fame at the same time that Al McGinnis came up, Al McGinnis is not getting in.
Right.
And that's what you got to remember, that it's not just how well you played and whether you had those numbers and whether you're Hall of Fame worthy, it's who's up at the same time you are. So McGinnis eventually would get in, but he's not getting in then. Like Mark, why do you think it took Mark Howe all those years to get in? He had Hall of Fame numbers, he had Hall of Fame presence, but there were a lot of great guys that were coming up that he just wasn't quite as good as those guys. So.
Yeah, I mean, the only slam dunk to me is Lundqvist. Maybe Bouwmeester is the other slam dunk, but I wouldn't put him a slam dunk.
I don't think Bouwmeester's a slam dunk at all.
I don't either. Me neither.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said that I thought this was the year that McGillney would have a shot.
He should get in. I would put McGillney in this group. And But there's room for another guy if you don't think. I mean, Bouwmeester had 1,240 games. It's a lot of games on defense.
I know, but I don't think he's going to get in. He may have to wait a few years. No, I mean, okay, guys like McGillney, who's been waiting a while. I know Rod Brindamore had 1,184 points. I don't know about Vinny Domfus. He's got the most points, I believe, of anybody who's not.
Nobody ever looked at him as a Hall of Famer.
He's more of a compiler. I get that. Peter Bondra with 503 goals.
Yeah, Bondra as a goal scorer is an all-timer. I think everybody would say he was a true, threat on the ice as a goal scorer. I mean, I would put in Bondra before Brindamore. I know people are going to be up in arms in Philly, but Bondra made his presence known as a goal scorer. Brindamore was a really good player, but that's it. He was a really good player.
Yeah, I mean, and we don't look at 500 goals the way we used to.
No.
Kachuk, Roenick, Verbeek, they all have 500 goals.
Pierre Bergeron.
Yeah. So 500 just doesn't mean as much as it used to.
And I will renew my assertion that Curtis Joseph should be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, he's not getting in with against Lundqvist. I can tell you that.
2 goalies in 1 year.
Two goalies, they're just not going to do it.
And right, exactly. And you'll have, and they seem to, and I know that they say there's no quota, but they seem to let in 1 female candidate each year and 1 European candidate each year. Jen Bottrell or Megan Duggan probably will be one of those two.
I would say Bottrell over Duggan for now.
Yeah, and I have no idea in terms of the Russian or Finnish or whatever. So whoever they decide to.
Here's the other list, though, just for Bouwmeester, even though you're saying no. 2 World Cup titles, a Stanley Cup title, an Olympic gold, and 2 World Championship titles. I mean, he has been on a lot of successful teams, and he was a reason that those teams were successful, too.
I'm just saying that he's probably – I would be stunned if he doesn't have to wait a couple years.
Yeah, I mean, he might have to wait, but he's better than Dick Duff, I can tell you that.
Yeah, you're not allowed to make that. You'd get.
No, I'm allowed. I don't care.
You get in the committee, and they'd say, Russ, we don't do that.
I know.
Yeah, but you love to do it, and fans. Fans love to do it. Yeah, all based on who got in before.
Yeah.
So
no, I know. If I was on the panel, I get it. You're not allowed, but I'm not on the panel, so I am allowed.
Yeah, no, that's right. And to be honest, that's how fans look at it. I mean,
yes.
But it's a lot harder when you're actually in there trying to sort it all out, because you're splitting so many hairs. Like it comes down to like trophies really matter, all-star selections, because everybody's got jewelry of some kind, and they all got impressive resumes. So you're looking for, because they're competing against these other guys, what's the advantage? And then you look down and one guy has made 9 postseason all-star teams, and you're going, oh, all right. And then the other guys have only made like 2 or 3. So those kind of things always matter. But it's a lot harder than you think. I
think it's hard. I don't think it's easy.
It's a lot more hard than, 4 guys sitting around drinking beer saying, wow, he's so much better than him, so. But it is difficult.
All right, so you wanted to talk about Arizona
Coyotes.
Yeah, I did. I talked to someone today who's aware of what's happening at the league level, and he thinks that a couple of things have happened. Number one, the Suns deal is the Suns owner would like to own the Coyotes if they're going to be involved. But he wants to buy it at the bargain rate, based on, what they paid for it and all that, and not based on what, the Senators are going for and all that. So
and that's not going to happen.
There's another parcel of land. And so that's what
I mean, just
where's this land, Kev?
Don't know.
Tucson, that's where it is.
No, I believe it's in Phoenix.
Yeah, I saw something online. There's a parcel of land in Phoenix too, and that's great. But the fact that there's no deal for it, the fact that you have to see if it could be developed, the fact that it hasn't been utilized in all these years for anything
no environmental study.
And they got like 4 months to do it. Good luck.
Yeah. No.
I'm done.
Well, yeah, I mean, this guy thought it was going to delay it. So, but
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by
Yeah.
that. That doesn't shock me at all. I think the league looks like a joke doing it, but they're going to do it because it's a big TV market. I mean, they've strung this along for 15 years because it's a top 10 TV market. I understand the reason why.
Their big problem, the league's big problem, is going to be if they let this string out like 6 months and all of a sudden it doesn't look good, and then they can't do anything about the buildings because of what Kevin said the last time, then all of a sudden it's going to get really bad.
no, I mean, it'll be, because that's what will happen if you don't, and it takes, I actually talked to a guy today who said, that I was wrong, that, the contracts are, he said, we've got contracts that are year out. So he said, it's never easy to do that. And he said, the other thing is too, it takes months to put together, staffs.
Right.
He said it's because I said, if I remember last time I told him, I said, doesn't it take like 2 months to put together season ticket sales staff and all? He goes, oh no. He goes, it could take you 3 or 4 months. He said, you got to try to find people who know what they're doing.
Right.
And he says, you got to put it on the websites and all that. He said it just takes time to do it. And so he said, so if they, let this thing go, they could go so far as to, make, although, some of these places are busier than others. Like some of these arenas that we're talking about, like I would assume Salt Lake's not nearly as busy as some of the.
No, they have
No, I agree.
They have one tenant. No, but they have concerts. So.
Yeah, whatever concerts they might have.
Yeah, they do. So, yeah. So,
well, I mean,
has there been any buyouts today?
No, nobody was on waivers, so nobody on the first day. But I'm glad you brought.
No, but Olofsson was dealt to Colorado for future considerations instead of buying him out.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's a little surprising. I mean, this is not Victor Olofsson from the Sabres. This is Frederick Olofsson from Dallas. So
right.
I'm not sure how much value he has. He was basically a minor leaguer for most of the year last year. But I did a column for another website on buyout candidates, Kev, and there are a number of players on every team that I could see the team going down that road. Now, there are certain players like for Detroit, for example, I had Philip Zadina as a potential buyout candidate because he didn't have a good year last year. And since he's under the age of 25, the buyout would be 1/3 and the cap hit would be minuscule. It's just a question of whether Yzerman thinks that somebody out there would give him a second round pick for a guy who was a 6th overall pick in the league and do that rather than incurring a small hit on the cap to buy him out. So I mean, I don't know.
Let me just float this out there. Sometimes it's a matter of perspective. Like Zadina has, in terms of being a first round pick, a top 6 pick, has been a bust. There's no arguing that. Right. But that's over to Yzerman. And now he's got a player who's locked in 3 years, making $1.8 million, who plays on the 3rd or 4th line, who scores 10 goals and maybe we get 14 or 15. Do you think he looks at it as a bad situation or a good situation?
No, good situation.
I think he sees it as a good situation. Yeah. So I don't know that they would do it. Now, that's not how the fan base sees it because they haven't gotten over it. But we know what it reminds me of? It was like Niedermeyer with the Florida Panthers. Yeah. He was drafted. People thought he was going to be a scorer. He wasn't any good, and he was such a disappointment until he got out west, where they saw him as a defensive forward.
Right,
and he was beloved.
Yeah.
And so I think if you start to see Zadina as, look, he's not that guy. We made a mistake, but. Can he be a secondary scorer? Can he do that? I don't know if the fans are going to be able to do that. But that contract is pretty good considering, what the league average salary is. I mean, he's below average salary. He's you're looking at players for $1 million for your roster. He's like 1.8, I think.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I mean, it's a little bit more than you'd want, but I don't know. I mean, I think they'll keep him, but maybe Yzerman. And I know Yzerman has always appreciated Zadina's work ethic, but we'll see.
I mean, we did a show on Locked On Flyers. We had about 4 candidates.
Mhm.
The two most popular would be Tony DeAngelo and Kevin Hayes.
Right.
And I could
DeAngelo-
see them both getting bought out if they can't come up with deals before the draft.
Yeah, DeAngelo is the one I chose, and because of the term, it was only a year,
Right.
$5 million. So the cap hit, I think, was like 1.6 for 2 years.
Yeah, the thing with Hayes is this
6
is
years.
but it's not about him not being able to play at all. Of course he could play. But the problem is if you got Kevin Hayes on the Flyers, who is not getting along with the coach, but he's scoring 55, 60 points, but he's not doing what the coach wants to do every shift. It's hard for the coach to tell the young players, you've got to do this on every shift, and they could see that Hayes is not.
And him scoring 55 to 60 points is counterproductive to what they want to do, which is be as bad as possible this year.
Well, I mean, forget that. I mean, I just think it's counterproductive to how they want players to play because he's not playing that way.
Right.
And so that's why I think they should buy him out, simply because I don't think they've been honest enough about how much the coach really doesn't enjoy him. And Hayes is a good guy. Like, he'll just put up with it and take his money. Like, he'll give you his effort, but he doesn't fit on that team with the way that coach wants to play. It's really obvious.
Yeah.
Well, what is he? 3 years left, guys?
Hayes, yes.
No, more.
No, 3 years at 7+.
Oh, it's 3? I thought it was 4. Okay.
Yeah. So 3 years. I mean, that's 6 on the books. That's a hard sell, boy.
Yeah,
that's
3
a
years.
hard sell to ownership.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, that might be. I see that as a struggle. I could see them for sure. Trying to peddle him, and I do think there would be some takers
if they were
Kevin Hayes, and we'll eat $2 million a year.
Well, that was the talk, Kev. But Columbus was that team, and Columbus went in a different direction, and now there doesn't seem to be a team.
Yeah, well, I think there is. I think there is a team. So
okay,
but we'll see how much they're willing to eat. So
in terms of like the way, and this is the way we'll read it as we see the buyouts come in. There are certain teams like, okay, with Buffalo, they don't have many bad contracts. One bad contract that they do have, in my estimation, is Eric Comrie, who they signed last year to a 2-year deal. He's only making $1.8 million like Zadina, and if you bought him out, the cap hit would be minuscule, but they don't have a goaltender signed for their American Hockey League team. So if they put him on waivers and he goes down to Rochester, they bury almost the same amount as of what they would save if they bought him out. So they'll probably keep him. A guy like, and this is one I came up with, Russ, and I think I talked to somebody in Ottawa and they think it's very possible, is Matthew Joseph, who they got in the Nick Paul deal. And immediately signed him to a 4-year deal at almost just under $3 million, and he scored 3 goals last year.
Yeah, that was a bad signing. Like, I get it. You thought that he had a high ceiling, and the ceiling hasn't shown. But to give him 4 years was unfounded. I could see that one happening. And look, with the Rangers, it could be Barclay Goodrow. Even though Barclay Goodrow can play, we all knew he was overpaid. I mean, that was obvious. But if they're going to be that desperate for cap space, he's going to end up getting bought out and going right back to Tampa.
Yeah, and the weird thing about his buyout, because I looked at Cap Friendly about it, they get a credit in years 2 or 3. It's not like it's like minus $200,000 or something like that. So really friendly to the Rangers in terms of a buyout for him, but it's over 6.
But they actually could use him as a player still.
Yeah.
But again, this is the second time now that the Rangers are sort of in this situation where they had to do that with Buchnevich. Yeah. They just traded him for basically nothing, for Sammy whatever. And he's in St. Louis now too. But they just dumped him because they knew they couldn't afford him. And now with Goudreau, it's like they can't afford him, and probably nobody will take his term in a trade. So everybody's going to wait till they buy him out, and then he's going to be a hot commodity.
Yeah, Sammy Blais.
Sammy Blais, thank you.
Yeah, but there are no brainers out there. I think Mike Riley in Boston is going to get bought out. I think Matt Murray, because it's buyout is so friendly for Toronto that unless they can find somebody to take the contract down, which I don't think that that they'll buy him out. Chris Dredger in Seattle. So I think you're going to see these sort of filter out over the next couple days. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, they don't have to do them right away. They have until the 30th. So
right, exactly. Now, Kev, what is interesting is the names are starting to filter out about potential trades, and Erik Karlsson's name obviously is front and center. He's probably going to win the Norris, and apparently him and the Sharks are on the same page about working towards making a deal. It didn't get done at the deadline because it was too complicated, but now with the expanding cap with the summer, I think it's going to get done. It's just a question of where he's going to go.
Yeah, a lot of people think it still isn't going to get done, although everyone, I think, thinks they're going to work at trying to get it done. But, the problem is the Sharks still don't want to go down as low as teams want them to in order to make it attractive. They would love to get him down in the $6 million range, and the Sharks are just not willing to do that.
Then it doesn't benefit them. I mean, the whole point of it trading them is to get rid of the
$11 million. 2 first-round picks would benefit them.
That would benefit them.
Yeah, that's what they want. Now, I'm not sure that we're going to see that happening, but certainly they'll get 1 first-round pick and a good prospect. But we'll see. I mean, as one of the GMs said to me today, the problem you have is what you always have. The teams that really want them are the contenders who don't have the cap space in order to do it. And the teams that can do it, and some of them might even want to do it, Erik Karlsson's not going to want to play with them.
Right.
So it's going to be hard, but
that darn cap. If it wasn't there,
but both sides are motivated, so we'll see.
And it's impossible to filter that deal through a third team because it's 4 years. If it was a year or 2, they would be able to. But 4 years, not even Arizona is willing to take that on. So so I mean I think let's just say this. I think the odds of a deal with Karlsson are better now than they were before the deadline. But Kevin's right. It's still going to be a bag of what.
Yeah. No, and you're absolutely right too. They are better because I think the difference now is we have the off season. It's a little easier to manipulate our cap space, but we'll see what people can work out. But it'll require. I did hear today that Pacioretty, they're going to kind of wait and see where he's at in terms of his rebound. So
makes sense.
We may not see that. I'm guessing he's going to end up with something in the order of bonuses and that kind of thing. So
and I mean it sounds like it's going to be sort of that type of deal with Patrick Kane too.
Yes, and it's going to be with the Rangers, which will really irritate Russ.
He just rolled.
No comment.
The guy who told me that you can count on it being the Rangers agreed with Russ. Said he doesn't fit with the Rangers, and he's a very knowledgeable guy. So
now
he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
A couple interesting names have popped up over the last 24 to 48 hours in terms of now. This is we are. All these teams are in the same situation with players who have a year left on their contracts. If they can't get them signed for what they want to get them signed for, like the gang in Winnipeg, or they don't want to re-sign there, then they're going to be on the market. The name that popped up that Pierre LeBrun reported about, Kev, was Brett Pesce, which took me a little bit by surprise because I just have associated him so long with Carolina, but he's been on a really friendly deal for, I think, the last 5 years, a little over 4. And, I think he's 28 years old. He sees the opportunity out there to make money like Severson just made in Columbus. He probably on the open market will get over 6. And obviously Carolina wants to get him extended before he gets a chance to get to the open market. And if he doesn't want to agree to that, then they're going to trade him. So it's sort of a staring contest right now.
Yeah, it is. And everything you just laid out is really the crux of it all. the Carolina Hurricanes have tried to re-sign him, and they want him back. They're offering him 5 years, is what I've been hearing. He changed agents. I don't know who he's with now, but he did change agents.
I think he's with Judd Moldaver or Wasserman now.
Yeah. Okay. And they felt, as just as Mike said, that it's time for a home run. The only issue for him, because I talked to another general manager who is interested in him, and he said the only thing he doesn't like is there's questions about whether or not he's capable of playing even more minutes, because they looked at him and he's at the 20-minute range, and he said we would need him to play 22 or 23. So can he do that? Now, I mean, that's a small thing. At least it is in my opinion. He didn't see it as so small, but just because of what they're asking for.
Well, I mean, what that is basically saying is they want him to be a top pairing guy,
Right.
and he's playing second pairing minutes behind Slavin and Brent Burns. So
the only problem with Carolina is they've got a couple of young prospects that are years away, and not much else as far as what they could fill in on defense anymore. Yeah,
no, they are trying to sign him, and it's not like they made him a weak offer. I've heard that it was over 5.
Okay.
So 5 years of over 5, but I think he, as Mike said, he probably wants over 6.
Yeah.
And over 6, and he probably wants an 8-year max deal. So strike while.
Yeah. I know for a fact too that offers are starting to come in, because everyone knows the Carolina thing, and teams will pay for a right shot D-man.
Oh no, they'll pay for him.
Yeah, so it'll be a first round pick for sure.
Yeah. Oh no, and then the team that Pierre mentioned specifically regarding Pesce was Buffalo, and Buffalo is loaded with first round pick prospects. They have all their draft picks. He would be a perfect fit on the right side with Owen Power, which is what I think. They right now their top pairing is Dahlin and Samuelson. And now the thing is, I don't think Buffalo would be upset. I mean, ideally, you want to get Pesce locked up long term if you're trading a first round pick and something for him. I don't think Buffalo would be totally upset just to ride out the year with him, because they're committing long-term money on Power and Dahlin, and I don't know how willing they're going to be to commit long-term money on a 28, 29-year-old defenseman. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Now, sticking with Buffalo for a second, Victor Olofsson, not the Olofsson that was just traded.
Right.
He's apparently attracting interest, according to Darren Drager. This is the thing, Russ. He is looked upon as sort of a one-note Charlie. He's a specialist. He's a power play
specialist. Yeah.
He's not particularly good defensively, so that would probably mitigate what Buffalo could get for him on the market. But the thing is, goals are always valuable.
Yeah, I think you can get, if there's a team that is a playoff caliber team that thinks their power play stinks, you can get a second rounder for them. But that's if you can find that team. I don't know who that team is right off the bat, so.
Yeah. All right. Good show, guys. We'll end it there. We'll be back on Monday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Kevin Allen, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.